Hello and welcome to my presentation on my placement year report, that being on evaluating acoustic indices and BirdNet as avian richness indicators in a fragmented forest landscape. I'm Harry Jollerton, and I'm very excited to talk to you guys about what I've been doing. So let's get into it. So a little bit of background. Much of the forest of Southeast Asia has been replaced with a palm oil monoculture, upwards of 1.51 million hectares in the state of Sabah, Malaysia alone. And this creates quite a difficult issue because studying the effect of this anthropogenic expansion on native wildlife requires extensive monitoring in the rainforest. That makes traditional methods very hard to use because these environments are very dense and hard to traverse, especially when these subject animals are hard to monitor, they're cryptic, endangered, rare. So one possible solution to this could be passively monitoring this environment, since many species vocalize. The sound they produce is inseparably linked to the quality of the habitat. So passively monitoring these environments holds a great deal of potential. So what is bioacoustics? It is the production, transmission, and reception of animal sounds. You can put these recorders on trees for long-term recording. Initially they were very expensive, but now the development of these low-cost passive acoustic monitor recorders have made bioacoustics a lot more accessible for biodiversity monitoring. And it holds a massive amount of potential to monitor cryptic and endangered species. So one possible group of animals that are very sensitive to human presence and vocalize frequently are birds. So birds is are the group of animals that I've been looking at. And there we go. So Borneo is home to upwards of 650 bird species, over 60 of which are endemic. A lot of these are very brightly coloured, very beautiful birds that a lot of people are very interested in, which makes them a very, very good subject. So here are some kingfishers that I've seen over the course of the year. We've also got here the state bird, the national bird of Malaysia. This is the rhinoceros hornbill. Very beautiful, very large bird that you see often in Borneo. This here is the wrinkled hornbill. It's personally my favourite. I've seen it quite a few times. It's a lovely bird to see. This here is the the white-crowned hornbill. It's a very strange-looking bird, a lot smaller than the other hornbills, but again, it vocalizes very frequently. And finally, here are three species of woodpecker. We've got the common flameback, the banded, and the orange-backed from left to right. So basically, what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of bird species here that vocalize very frequently, so being able to passively monitor them holds a great deal of potential. So a few issues with acoustic data, especially something that has to be addressed, is these large-scale acoustic data sets can be very difficult to store. The battery life of these recorders has to be taken into account. And one very, very important point that I'm trying to make is that manual analysis is tedious and very time-consuming. It's very hard to obtain this meaningful data from these recordings, so therefore it creates this need for these methods of rapidly analysing this acoustic data in these large-scale biodiversity surveys to glean important information from it. Okay, so one example of solving this issue is by using BirdNet. This is a freely available animal sound identification algorithm created by the Cornell Labs of Ornithology. Right now it can identify upwards of 6,000 species, mostly birds, just from their vocalizations. It's available as an app, but it also has integration very recently with Raven Pro, which is Cornell Labs' own sound analysis software. Using this could massively reduce the manual annotation time needed to go through all of these recordings by allowing BirdNet to automatically identify species from these recordings. But how does BirdNet work? So this is Raven Pro. This is the sound analysis software, and I'll quickly run it through with you. I've loaded in this WAV file that I want to find out what bird is making this noise. So I go onto the learning detector. Here I'm just inputting the waveform, so I'm telling BirdNet which sound file to look at, and here I'm configuring the learning detector. So what I've done is I've created a Birds of Borneo CSV file, which has listed all the birds from the Birds of Southeast Asia, which is available on BirdNet. Just the birds that are known to be in Borneo. I've set the threshold value very low, and here I'm just showing some of the species that are present there. So all you have to do is hit OK. BirdNet will run through the WAV file, and it will give a label. And here, as you can see, it's given the crested serpent eagle with a score of 0.32. And in this case, BirdNet was right. It correctly guessed the species based from the recording. And there's the crested serpent eagle just having a little dance that I saw not long ago. Okay, so there's one example. We have BirdNet. One other example is using acoustic indices. Put very simply, they are mathematical formula that summarize a soundscape characteristic. They're designed to be simple. They will summarize a certain aspect of a soundscape, and since species are vocalizing within that soundscape, the theory is that as soundscape complexity increases, so does species richness or biodiversity. And here is one example of an acoustic index. This is the Bioacoustic Index. So the Bioacoustic Index, as you can see here, is a product of amplitude and the number of occupied frequency bands. What you essentially need to know is that it has reported strong correlations with species richness in both the UK and tropical environments, the Republic of Panama. Okay, so there's one example. We have BirdNet. One other example is using acoustic indices. Put very simply, they are mathematical formula that summarize a soundscape characteristic. They're designed to be simple. They will summarize a certain aspect of a soundscape, and since species are vocalizing within that soundscape, the theory is that as soundscape complexity increases, so does species richness or biodiversity. So the second one we're going to go through is the Acoustic Complexity Index. So this is sensitive to irregular biophony, but filters out persistent anthrophony. So this is actually going to be very helpful to basically focus on a frequency band associated with bird species or most biophonic sound. It's also reported some positive associations between acoustic complexity index and avian species richness. Okay, so there's one example. We have BirdNet. One other example is using acoustic indices. Put very simply, they are mathematical formula that summarize a soundscape characteristic. They're designed to be simple. They will summarize a certain aspect of a soundscape, and since species are vocalizing within that soundscape, the theory is that as soundscape complexity increases, so does species richness or biodiversity. And finally, we've got the Acoustic Evenness Index. So the Acoustic Evenness Index actually is inverted. As diversity increases, the index value will decrease as sounds become more evenly distributed across the soundscape. It has also reported a strong correlation between it and avian species richness in the UK. So they've all had some links before. So a quick little bit of background on how you see sound. Number one, we've got the soundscape. This is the total acoustic energy in an environment. Number two, we've got biophony. This is the collective sound of animals, any noises they make. Geophony is a collective geophysical sound, so wind, rain, water flow, water coming off of tree branches, anything like that is considered geophony. We also have anthrophony, which is sounds generated by us as well as the noises that, of the things that we create. So cars, boats, the sounds of construction equipment, anything like that. The waveform is in the top right hand corner, as you can see here. That is the sound, changes in sound intensity over time, and this funky thing in the bottom left hand corner is the spectrogram. This focuses on the changes in signal frequencies over time. Okay, we're just going to skip these through. So a little bit of background. I'm using the Audio Moths. Here it is. So this is a low-cost full-spectrum acoustic recorder. It records audio at regular intervals and can be configured to bats, insects, birds, anything you want. There are massive recording databases available online, and it's considered a passive monitoring method. So you literally put it on a tree, and that is it. With this, it could replace more invasive techniques of biodiversity monitoring. And here, as you can see, I've set it up to record for 1 minute, and then sleep for 4 minutes, and then for 5 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. So what are my aims? I want to investigate the correlation between bird net detections and acoustic indices in this acoustically complex environment, and then use this data collected to assess the diversity across forest types. My expected outcome would be that there's a strong correlation between the number of species detected by BirdNet and increasing index value of Bio, ACI, and ADI, and then decreasing value for the acoustic evenness index. I really want to see if there's a reflection between the derived species richness and the values created by these indices. And I also expect BirdNet to detect a large presence of some birds, but not all. So the sites that I'm using for the study are a selection of 3 forest types. The main ones here, we've got lowland dipterocarp, seasonal freshwater and freshwater, then 3 regrow Borneo sites that are actively monitored, and agricultural land, so oil palm plantation. And here's just a quick figure to show where I've put these recording sites. As you can see, I've been all the way up and all the way down river, as well as into the agricultural land to the north and south. So in the field, audio moths are placed in a small mammal trap at a standard 2 meters from the ground. I'm also trying to minimize this overlap in terms of recording. So I'm have a 1 kilometer minimum distance. Some sites have been very hard to get to. A lot of jungle trekking through the forest. But as of right now, all audio moths have been collected. So it's just been data analysis. And here's just a few examples of my results. You've already seen this, which has been on my my poster presentation. And here's a little bit more as well. So as you can see, there's no correlation between BirdNet derived species richness and each of the index values. And what's next? Finish my report. As of the recording of this, I've almost got it finished. So yes, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and that it wasn't too long. I hope you have a good day. Bye.